Hello there, Jason Boswell here from Opentext, and here's an update on core data discovery and risk insights, the 25.3 release, which is the third quarter release of 2025. Okay, so let's get into this and show you what's in the new release. Okay, so as always, let's look at the schedule first. Now I'm a little late putting this video out. I've been traveling in August, so I usually try and get this update and this video done pretty soon after the demo system has been updated, about early August. But yeah, so I'll try and get this done a bit earlier for the next one. But as you can see, we're able to put the production system on Pro 2 has been updated, and the Prod 01 and Prod 03 are scheduled updates. This is a cloud-only release. The next release, 25.4, will be a cloud on-premise release. So in terms of the highlights of this release, there are some new features and customer requests in there. And the first one is about advanced capture rules, which sounds quite technical, but is actually quite powerful in what it can really help you in terms of making your scanning the most efficient and cost-effective as possible. There's more precise tagging and workbook and search definitions. This is really something that customers have been asking for. So you can actually search on how many there are. You know, and perhaps a document that contains more than 50 credit cards is a lot more sensitive than one that contains just one credit card. And also some more options to actually downgrade the analysis. So initially you might want to store on much of the content within inside the index, but after a period of time you may want to just downgrade that. You're happy with just showing the results of the analysis rather than the content. Okay, so there's some more options in there, and then we'll get into the details. So first of all, this is a new advanced capture rules, and these capture rules are displayed on the dataset configuration page. So there's this new dialog that you see on the right hand side here. That gives you it actually displays in the UI what you could do by doing some config in the agents, but now we present this up at the inside the dataset configuration, and this could really help you improve your scanning performance. So you can put it into full scan mode, but then choose each one of the search criteria to determine perhaps I want to skip certain file types, and maybe I only want to do metadata of certain file types, and then I want to analyze certain other file types. So you can set the general mode that the dataset is in, and then it sequentially goes through, and you can use create date, modified date, file extension. So obviously base metadata, because that's what we know at the point of analysis, and then this information sent down to the agent, and it uses that, and it sequentially goes through these capture rules. So does it match the first criteria, second criteria? So it goes down those rules in order. You can also change this to an existing data set, but of course this will only apply to new data that's been scanned. But I know customers in the past have had, if they wanted to have different file types, for example, being analyzed in different ways, what they had to do is start with metadata and then create workbooks to do this. So you can do all of this now during the dataset configuration. You can notice at the top right hand side of that dialog, there's a load from templates, so that once you do this for the first time, and then you perhaps want to set a template to these, then the second time you create the data set, you say, well, do I want this to be the same as my previous one? So you can have a consistent set going across these. So I wouldn't underestimate the power of this. This can significantly, what tends to happen in scanning processes is that you'll scan through millions of files, and then you'll get stuck on some very big files. You might also get stuck on file types that you spend a lot of time analyzing, and you don't need that you know there's no sensitive data in certain file types. So, and that's your choice whether you want to skip them, just take the metadata, or fully content analyze them. So I really recommend having a try with this stuff. It can really help you in terms of your scanning performance and manage the cost. Because of course, if you scan the metadata and store the metadata, it's not only quicker to do, but it's also cheaper in terms of the VAU usage. Okay, let's move on to some other data process enhancements. Now you can go through your unstructured data sets and downgrade the analysis state. These two radio buttons on the right hand side were grayed out, or once you started scanning the data, these were fixed. You couldn't change them. Now you can change them. You can go back, and of course, if you turn this off, then it will clear out the content. Okay, so now you can effectively downgrade the analysis state of the data. There's a few more enhancements, including the reporting of container file counts. This was confusing some people, so now it reports based on the root documents rather than the documents that may be in a container. In terms of grammar exclusions, remember we added in the last few releases. Previously you added the grammar exclusion, it would only apply to new data, but now there's a reanalyze link that's on the dataset configuration. So next to the grammar sets on the dataset detail panel. So if you add the grammar exclusion, then and hit the reanalyze, then it will reprocess them to actually remove those inclusions from being tagged. A customer request was to add SQL Server Entra ID authentication. So as you can see in the screenshot here, we've got Windows authentication, SQL authentication, now Microsoft Entra ID password authentication in there. We upgraded grammars and added national ID for New Zealand. Of course, with every release, we look at updating the grammars with the idle deduction grammars, and we try and get them up to date as possible. When creating grammar rules, we've removed the option to add a term list. So before you could create a term list and then add that term list to a grammar rule. Now you can still, this didn't make too much sense really, so you can still add individual terms. So you can create your own term list with inside grammar rules, but you can't bring them in from an existing term list. And then just as a bit basically a UI thing, we've changed the sources filter to make you do multi-select. So previously you had to select all sources or a single data set. In terms of agent enhancements, we now support on the agents Windows Server 2025. We still support the older versions, so we right the way back to Windows Server 2016. But now if you're running on the later version of Windows, we now support that. And we actually exclude we found that these ESD file types, which are encrypted container files that are used by Microsoft patching, they were really affecting scanning operations. So now these are by default excluded from the scanning operation, the skip from the scanning operation. And this third item here is something that is actually in the release notes, but on further testing, there's some more work we need to do on this. So this is the method to identify purview labels. And if they are encrypted labels, we show it as protected data. But really, if the labels were not encrypted labels, they were in just like a footer or a header or something like that, or a watermark, we would still show them as protected data, but really they weren't, and we should be showing the data. So we've still got a little bit more work to do on that one. So that will be fixed in the next release. Okay. So in terms of analyzing and searching, this is a feature that we've been wanting to add for some time. And this is the ability to add a kind of maximum minimum number of values in the search criteria. So previously, if you said, I want to search for everything that's got bank account numbers, you could only say whether it was more of a binary search. Does it have bank account numbers or does it not have bank account numbers? You couldn't say, and really the sensitive nature of those documents perhaps would be how many bank account numbers are in there. So now you can say there is at least um, at least a number of items. So you can basically, we added thresholds before, so that was the kind of our confidence threshold, but now you can do that in conjunction with the counts as well. So this is available in Manage and in Analyze. So basically wherever you use the search builder, you can do that, or you can use the search builder, of course, with your tags. So this is quite a powerful feature. I'd be interested in feedback from our customers and whether they find this useful in terms of creating definitions that really look for the real critical high priority items that need to be cleaned up. For spreadsheets, so CSV and Excel files, now as you can see in the screenshot there, it wasn't displayed particularly well, so now we've put them in more of a basic table format so that when you're displaying that data, you can find it much more readable in terms of the content in the content view. And the analyze sensitive trending dashboard, so this is the tag one and the grammar trend dashboards. Some of the data was, it always showed 0 before, even though we perhaps had no data. So a 0 trend means that there is no change, whereas a dash now represents that there's no data, basically a null value. Okay, so we distinguish between nulls and no change in there. And some manage enhancements. Now we've had the ability to reanalyze the data. So if you made some changes in some of the configuration, of course, we don't reanalyze the content that hasn't changed. So we don't go back to the source and rescan the data. You wouldn't want to do that. So here you can reanalyze some of the data if you wish. For the deduplication workbooks, you can see on the bottom right hand side here, we've changed the configuration to make it a little bit easier to work with and hopefully make more sense in terms of creating your duplication workbooks. And when viewing the documents detail panel on the right hand side, which display, you can now see the document IDs for all the master records. So some improvements in terms of deduplication checks. There are a number of other fixes in there, so I recommend you go to the release notes and have a look in there. I've tried to highlight the main ones in there. So thanks very much for listening to this, and looking forward to the next one, 25.4. There's actually some quite big changes in 25.4 which we're working on right now, some really interesting stuff. So I guess that will be a bit longer video. So we're working on that now, and you should see that coming along very soon. All right, guys, thanks very much. Bye for now.